Yes guys, what's going on? Coach Indy here. Welcome back to the TIFC YouTube channel. Watching another Premier League Appetiser show. Now if you haven't subscribed or click that notification bell on this channel, please do so. It does really help the channel grow. Once we dive into this, at the end of the video as well, leave a like, leave a comment. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about the video. Interesting points I've made, some things that you want to make yourself. We're going to have a chat about it, have a bit of a discussion. I'm going to dive straight in because there's so much to get into. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about lots of different news that's sort of made the headlines over the last week or so, and there's a lot to talk about there. Talk about the European results like we do every week, just very briefly. It means a lot going forward with the European clubs and what sort of scenario they're in or out of. Also be doing Indy versus rest of the world. That's an interesting watch as well, guys. And then we'll just be touching on last week's results and fixtures, and then also previewing game week 11. So just going back to the other news category, and it's to do with COVID again, guys. It's a common thing every week, and it's going to probably be a theme throughout the whole season. First thing is Newcastle United have had lots and lots of COVID tests, or positive tests should I say, positive cases. They had a couple before their last game, which was against Crystal Palace. And then on the back of that they've had a bunch more, and on the back of that they've had to close down their training ground because it's not safe. That leads on nicely to this weekend's fixture. They was meant to play Aston Villa, but because training ground's been closed and the players haven't been able to train, etc., it's just not safe. That game has now been postponed and will be rearranged at a later date throughout the season. So it's a bit bad news obviously in terms of the fixture, but obviously, you know, paramount. Also the players' health and safety is the most paramount thing, and not just the players, the staff as well. So this is sort of negative news to start with, and there's a bit of a theme here, guys. There is quite a bit of negative news. I suppose some people would argue the news, negative news, is part of the news. You know, that's why it makes the news. The next thing is Wolves played Arsenal on the Monday night, and over the weekend. It might be Monday night, might be Sunday night. I'm not sure exactly. I would just merge this into one, guys. But Raul Jimenez, I'm sure you guys would have heard about it and stuff. He had a head collision with David Luiz from their own corner. So Wolves had a corner, cross came in, and David Luiz has gone to clear it, gone to attack it. Sorry, Raul Jimenez has gone to clear it. They both clashed heads. There was a big stoppage in play for about 10 to 12 minutes. Raul Jimenez had to be stretchered off. David Luiz had to be bandaged up and continued playing. He actually subsequently went up at half time. Arsenal come out and said they did all the protocols and stuff. He was okay to play, but he wasn't safe to, or didn't feel right to play afterwards. With Raul Jimenez, like I said, he was stretchered off, went straight to the hospital. Next day it was announced that he had a fractured skull, which is, you know, horrendous news. He's had surgery on his fractured skull as well, and he has sort of put on his socials as well that he's hoping to be fine back for his team very, very soon. But we send our wishes here at TIFC to Raul Jimenez. Hope he you know, sort of makes a speedy recovery. Just to touch on as well, like Ryan Mason was an ex-Spurs player. He had a similar type injury as well, and that ended his career. He was a lot younger, sort of early 20s. You've had other head injuries as well, like Petr and Chivu, who used to play for Roma, but they've all sort of face masks and helmets and stuff. So it's one of those. Obviously, you hope he's going to be okay, and you know he's got a young family as well. So I'm sure he's you know, his kids and his wife and his family are sort of praying for him as well. So that's sort of that. The other thing I want to talk about is Jurgen Klopp's rant after the Brighton game, which incidentally finished 1-1, which we'll touch on a bit more further down the line. But Des Kelly, the journalist for BT Sports, he was pressing the question. So every manager has their, you know, press conference after the game for the broadcasters, and they'll have one for the papers as well. But this was for the TVs and for the television. Sorry, Des Kelly was, you know, pressing, and I don't know. There's two ways of looking at this. But the gist of it was, Jurgen Klopp is on a rant about, you know, players getting injured because there's not enough time between the games, especially for the European teams, because they're playing, you know, some of them are playing away on a Wednesday, then playing early kick-off on a Saturday. I kind of get that, to be honest with you, but having said that, it was the same 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when Arsenal's and, you know, Man United and stuff were doing the same thing. Now you could argue that the game's more advanced, it's more athletic, it's a lot more explosive, so the bodies of the players, they need more time to recover, which I would agree with that. Personally, it's my take on that. But anyway, Des Kelly sort of, Jurgen Klopp's always blaming the broadcasters, saying you chose this kick-off time. You chose it, not him, not as in Des Kelly directly, but as in BT he's referring to. And Des Kelly, to be fair to him, sort of defended that position as as an employee of the BT Sports. Now I don't know if Des Kelly was briefed from his bosses to say, do you know what, if the conversation comes up in the post-match interview, just press him a bit more, so we can make some headlines, but also just defend our position. Or if Des Kelly was just caught in the midst of it and just found himself defending what he believed in, kind of thing. But it's an interesting take. It lasted about 6, 7, 8 minutes, guys, and if you haven't seen it already, go into YouTube, type in Jurgen Klopp rant. It's on there. It's brilliant, honestly. It's really, really good viewing. I've actually watched it 2 or 3 times. I watched it live at the time, and then I've watched it a couple of times on YouTube just to watch it again, because it's hilarious in some respects. It's awkward. I can understand it as well from Klopp's point of view. I can understand from the broadcast point of view. It's really just compelling viewing, really, guys. We touched on the Villa game. The other thing I just want to mention, guys, is I've only just heard about it briefly last night and a bit more this morning, but there's going to be a new UEFA competition that's going to partake as of the 21-22 season. It's called the Europa League Conference. First, I've heard it literally about an hour ago, guys, so I can't brief you too much on it. But all I'll say is it's going to be a third UEFA tournament along with the Champions League and the Europa League. This is going to be called Europa Conference League. What else have I got down here? There'll be 184 teams involved over the course of the season, including at least one from each of the 55 associations. Okay, fair enough. And 46 clubs transferring from either UEFA Champions League or the Europa League. So there's probably obviously going to be some relegations there, where the teams finish 3rd or 4th in the competition or whatever. My guess would be maybe the 4th place team in the Champions League goes into this competition, and the 3rd place team in the Europa League goes into the competition, or something like that. Yeah, so that's all I can tell you at the moment, guys. That's all I know. There's also going to be some qualies as well, which, there always is in these qualification, in these competitions. So yeah, definitely watch your space with this one. I'm sure there'll be more information as the season progresses about this one. So that's all in terms of sort of headlines and stuff that's made the news. European results, we'll just touch on those. So various teams have already qualified in the Champions League and Europa League, and some haven't. So Liverpool won they won 1-0 against Ajax in midweek. That makes sure they are qualified and through to the last 16 of the Champions League. City won their game, they're already qualified anyway. Sorry, they didn't win their game, they drew their game, but they're already qualified, so they're through. Chelsea won their game, they were already through anyway. And Man United lost to PSG 3-1, actually it finished in the end, or 1-3 should I say, and they have not qualified yet. And being a Man United fan, I do fear for this game against RB Leipzig away from home next week. Moving on to Europa League games, so Arsenal won their game 4-1 last night. They've qualified. Spurs drew 3-3 in a really high scoring game, especially as it was only 2-1 with about 10 minutes to go, 3 goals in the last 10 minutes. They've also qualified. Leicester lost 0-1 yesterday, but they've already qualified as well. So as it stands, 6 out of the 7 European teams have qualified. It's only Man United that haven't. And whether they finish 1st or 2nd, I'm not entirely sure at this stage, but they're into the hat, into the next round. So we're just going to move on to Indy versus rest of the world. Now, representing the rest of the world this week, or should I say last week, was one of my ex-players actually. His name is Tom Upshaw, we call him Uppy. He's a goalkeeper of mine. He's really good lad actually, helped me out coaching as well. So I've got a little soft spot for him. He's a good lad, so he's got involved this time around. He's going to be representing the rest of the world. He's also the youngest of all of our players so far this season. He's like 19 years old, so he knows a bit about football. That's probably a bit of discredit. He knows a decent amount about football, So we'll just dive into the results. So Palace versus Newcastle was a Friday night game. I've gone for a 1-1. He's gone for a 2-2. It finished 2-0 to Newcastle. 2 quite late-ish goals. So Again, no points for any of us there. Brighton versus Liverpool. I should mention as well, he's a Liverpool fan. I've had quite a lot of Liverpool fans thinking about it. I need to sort of diversify here a little bit, guys. So yeah, he's a Liverpool fan. I went for 3-1 Liverpool. He's gone for 4-1 Liverpool. This finished 1-1, a late goal. Late penalty for Brighton, sort of getting the equaliser. So again, 0 points apiece. Manchester City versus Burnley. This finished 5-0 to Manchester City. Excuse me, guys, just drinking my tea. Oh, that's a good tea. It finished 5-0 to Manchester City. I've gone 4-0. He's gone 3-0. Both picked up 2 points, so we're off the mark after 3 games. Everton versus Leeds. I've gone for a Desmond 2-2. He's gone for a 1-1 draw. It finished 1-0 to Leeds, so neither of us picked up any points there. West Brom versus Sheffield U. Finished 1-0 to West Brom. Actually, a really big game, actually, which we'll touch on a little bit later. It finished 1-0 to West Brom. I've gone for 1-1. He's gone for a 1-0 Sheffield United win. So again, neither of us pick up any points there. Then we have Southampton versus Manchester United. Obviously, I went for a Man United win. I went for a 2-1 win. He went for a Southampton 2-0 win. And this finished 3-2 to Man United. So I picked up 2 points. He picked up 0. Then we have Chelsea versus Spurs. I've gone for another Desmond. He's gone for a high scoring game as well. I went for Chelsea 2, Spurs 3. And it finished 0-0, guys. So that's a bit of an anticlimax, wasn't it? So again, 0 points apiece. Arsenal versus Wolves. This finished 2-1 to Wolves. A really good away win for Wolves, actually. And a new shape, which we'll touch on a little bit later on, actually, guys. So yes, it finished 2-1 to Wolves. I've gone for a 1-1. He's gone for a 2-0 win to Arsenal. So neither of us picked up any points there either. Leicester versus Fulham was the first of the Monday night games. We both went for a 3-1 win to Leicester. And this was a big shock. It actually finished 2-1 to Fulham, which was a massive result for them. So again, 0 points apiece. And then we have the last game, which was West Ham versus Aston Villa. Finished 2-1 to West Ham. I've gone for a 1-1 draw. He went for a 2-1 Villa win. So again, we picked up 0 points apiece. So if you guys were calculating as we were going along, you would have realised I finished on 6 points, which is my joint worst score of the season. And Tom representing the rest of the world. Well, let's be honest, he only got 2 points. He didn't really represent too well there, did he? He's only a young'un. Actually, he was not the youngest, actually. He's the second youngest. I forgot about Kirat. He's only a young lad as well. Yeah, so he only picked up 2 points. So 6-2 to myself. So I picked up 4 extra points. So I'm quite happy with that. So the cumulative scores for the season so far are as follows. Indy's on 109 and the rest of the world are on 102. So no panic stations for the rest of the world as of yet. Lots of games to look forward to in weeks ahead. There's going to be opportunities for someone to possibly, claw some points back, or another person to edge further ahead, as there's going to be so many fixtures going into this festive period. So like I said, next week, guys, we'll have obviously someone fresh on again. Yeah, so that is the rest of the Indy versus the rest of the world this week. We'll just move on to game week 10 results, which we haven't discussed yet. Only a few we touched on briefly. So yeah, Crystal Palace finished, obviously, it finished 2-0 to Newcastle, away win for Newcastle. Goals for Callum Wilson, which is no surprise. He's been scoring, I think, at least 50% of their goals this season. But Joe Linton, he scored, I think it might have been his first goal of the season, guys. It was actually a nicely worked goal, and a good win, a clean sheet as well for Newcastle. Eases the pressure off Steve Bruce, because I think there was a bit sort of developing there for him, but eases the pressure on himself. So good win for Newcastle. Moving on to the Saturday games, Brighton versus Liverpool was the early kick-off. Lots of controversy in this game, lots of VAR involvement. Finished 1-1. Liverpool thought they took the lead in the first half. Mo Salah thought he had scored, given offside, marginal, probably like a centimetre or two, but nevertheless that is the laws of the game, and that's how VAR has been interpreted at the moment. So correct decision. Jota then went and scored in the second half, and that official goal put them 1-0 up. Liverpool thought they'd doubled their lead when Robertson crossed the ball in and Mane scored a header, but it was given offside. That was a comfortable offside. Then there was an incident when Danny Welbeck was sort of nicked the ball past Andy Robertson in stoppage time of the first half, of the second half. Sorry, no decision was made the decision was made. There was no penalty. Sorry, went to VAR. Andy Robertson has kicked Danny Welbeck's foot. It only looks minor, but end of the day, the VAR and the referee between them have made a decision and given the penalty. Equalised in the 92nd minute. Gross has scored. Also, just to mention as well, Brighton had a penalty in the first half as well, and it was missed by Neil Maupay. So it could have been a very different day for Liverpool, but equally it could have been a lot worse for Brighton as well. That finished 1-1. Man City versus Burnley. Now, finally, you could say Man City have turned up this season in the Prem. 5-0 win. It seems to be the scoreline any time Manchester City play Burnley in the league at the Etihad. I think on the last four occasions they've won 4-0 at the Etihad, so it's 20-0 over the last 4 games. Again, goals from hat-trick from Mahrez was with them standout sort of performance, if you like. De Bruyne looking sharp and clever. Mendy scored a goal, and someone else scored a goal as well. It might have been an own goal in there. Yeah, the goalkeeper scored an own goal. So no, it wasn't goalkeeper. Sorry, it was given offside. That was. There was another player who scored a goal, guys, in there. 5-0. To Manchester City, and hopefully they can get their season up and running now and build some consistency. Everton versus Leeds. Now, I touched on this on the preview show last week. I thought this would be a really fascinating game from a tactical point of view. And it was to a certain extent, but I would say Leeds actually dominated the game, and I don't know if that was down to... I mean, a lot of that was down to them imposing themselves on the game, but also Everton's deficiencies in terms of not having enough balance in the team. That's sort of my outlook on it. They didn't have a natural... Well, they played Tom Davies, who's a centre midfielder, as a left wing back, which was, obviously Ancelotti sees him every week and every day in training, so you can understand he maybe sees something in that, but it seems very unusual. But Leeds were good value for their money. They could have, I think they had a goal disallowed through offside decision as well, Bamford. So good win for Leeds, and the Bielsa train continues, if you like. Momentum. West Brom versus Sheffield United. Now this arguably could have been, certainly on paper, maybe the most important fixture of the weekend. Maybe not the most appealing, for the two teams sort of at the bottom of the league. But nevertheless, if you ask the fans of those respective clubs, they would say it's a very important game. Finished 1-0 to West Brom. Young Ferguson, who's on loan from Chelsea, centre midfielder, scored a goal from the edge of the box, sort of a second phase of a corner, and chucked it into the bottom corner. I can't really say too much about this game, guys, so I didn't really see too much of it. But all I'll say is, from the statistics and hearing Chris Wilder's post-match interview, they had a bundle of chances, certainly enough to even win this game and a couple more, let alone just pick a point from this game. So they were very, very disappointed to pick up 0 points from this game. Moving on to Sunday then, we had Southampton versus Man United. Was the first game of the weekend. Finished Southampton 2, Manchester United 3. United were 2-0 down at half time in this game and played okay in spells in the first half, but were also vulnerably defensively. Having said that, it was 2 excellent set pieces that have scored the goals. Ward-Prowse for a goal and assist, one from a corner, which Bednarek scored a header, and then he scored a direct free kick as well. Half time, United make a sub, or 2 subs actually, because De Gea picked up a bit of an injury. And Henderson come on, and to be honest with you, just a side note on him, I think he looked really, really assured, looked really comfortable, everything was clean, didn't look vulnerable at all, so I was quite pleased with him. Let's not get sidetracked with that. Cavani was the second substitution he made, and he come on and made that massive difference. Scored 2 goals, in which the winner was scored in stoppage time, and also picked up an assist for Bruno Fernandes' goal as well. So 3-2 to United, very, very good win. The way momentum continues in the league. I think that's 8 away wins in a row. I think that is now in the Premier League. It's a club record for Manchester United. So yeah, very good win for Solskjaer. Good fight back in the second half. Chelsea versus Spurs finished 0-0. Now, a bit of an anticlimax this one. We touched on in the Predos. You expect there possibly to be a lot of goals in this game, given the fact that the 2 teams have scored the most goals going into the weekend. It finished 0-0. I mean, I think it looked like neither team wanted to give any initiative to the opposition, so they played within themselves a little bit. You could tell, especially from Spurs' point of view, they didn't go out their slots too much, played sort of a low block in some stages and a low to mid block in other stages, and looked to sort of hit in transitions. And in the first half they did have 2 or 3 4 moments where they could have, picked up a goal or possibly. Less moments in the second half, although they did have one right at the end. Could have done better with. And Chelsea just, I think, give a lot of credit to Spurs. They nullified all the obvious threats that Chelsea had in the final third, and you got to give them a lot of credit. Timo Werner was really on the cusp of the game. Really, Abraham wasn't really in it. Giroud did have a chance late on to possibly nick it, but it wasn't the case, and it fell 0-0. So in some ways, you could argue both managers were probably quite pleased with that. They're still unbeaten. Their run continues, if you like. Moving on to the late game on the Sunday, then, which was Arsenal 1, Wolves 2. Goals from Neto and Pedence. The Pedence goal, by the way, guys, I've not heard one person rave about this, at all, about the goal. And at the moment I saw it, I thought, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Lionel Messi scored a very similar type goal against Arsenal in the Champions League 10 years ago, and he got the most coverage. Honestly, it was the skill that Messi did was outrageous. It was phenomenal, but he got so much coverage, and it was unbelievable. And then Pedence did something very, very similar, and it's just oh, it's a goal. No, it was a good goal for that was it. Everyone should be raving about it. I think it's just because it's just his profile of player, really, and obviously Messi is a profile. So it finished 2-1 to Wolves, and obviously we don't want to touch on this too much. It's more about sort of the player welfare, really, to make sure Jimenez and David Luiz are okay and stuff like that, really. But a good win for Wolves. Moving on to the Monday night games then. So the first game was Leicester versus Fulham. Now on paper, a lot of teams will fancy themselves against Fulham, and a lot of people off paper and fans would expect a good win for Leicester in this game, and it wasn't the case. I watched the game, and Fulham looked very, very lively, looked assured in possession. Defensively, actually looked very, very strong, and then on transition, they had a lot of pace. Christian Fuchs is getting younger. Johnny Evans has never been quick. They had young Thomas playing as well, so that side in particular was exploited on the left hand side. Was exploited quite a lot. They win the penalty from that side, and they score another goal as well. Lookman exploiting the space from behind. 2-0 up, and then it's they've got something to hold on to throughout the rest of the first half and going into the second half. There's only a late sort of cameo in the last 10 minutes where Leicester did score one goal and they could have got an equaliser, but I think that would have been a bit harsh on Fulham personally, because they deserved the win in my opinion. That pushes them outside the relegation zone as well. So psychologically that does help, especially going into this festive period. You know what they say about teams who are in the relegation zone or bottom of the league going into Christmas. It's not a very good omen statistically. And then you had West Ham versus Aston Villa. Lots of VAR moments in this game as well. Jarrod Bowen took a corner in the first half. Ogbonna scores a goal. There was some controversy, or some appealing, should I say, from a Villa point of view. No, there was no free kick there. Definitely a goal. Jack Grealish equalises with a nice sort of strike, albeit a little deflection on it. West Ham at half time, they were getting outplayed in the first half, and David Moyes decided to make some changes. Took a player off, Masuaku, brought in Benrahma. Went to a back four. Within the first minute, Benrahma's picked up an assist. Bowen scored a header. So straight away they made a bit of an impact in that respect. But the controversies happened later in the game. There was Jack Grealish got fouled ample amount of times, which is no different to any other game. He gets fouled 6, 8, 10 times every game. It's just the way he plays. He entices players to think they can nick it, and they can't nick it. And he protects the ball well as well. But there was a penalty given from a foul from Declan Rice on Trezeguet. It wasn't. He didn't really disguise it very well, Declan Rice, put it that way. Watkins stepped up in a way, and he missed the penalty. That was devastating from my point of view, because I've got him in my FPL team, FYI. And then there was a disallowed goal again from Watkins in the 90th minute, marginally offside. The build up to the goal, though, I will say, he did get fouled. The reason why he's offside is because he's trying to grapple away from Ogbonna, I think it was, again, and that's why he's offside. So I felt for Watkins in that game, to be honest with you. I think his confidence might get a bit dented there. Nevertheless, he hopefully will bounce back, and Dean Smith will trust in him. I suppose they did spend 30 odd million on him, so they definitely do trust him. So that rounds up game week 10 results. We're going to move on to game week 11 fixtures. Touched on Aston Villa versus Newcastle being postponed because of COVID. We don't know when that's going to be rearranged. There was some talk earlier in the week that it could get rearranged for this midweek coming, so it's still part of this game week, but it's just later in the week. But nothing has been confirmed yet. Then we move to Saturday. We've got Burnley versus Everton as the early kick-off. Burnley obviously on the back off their 5-0 battering from Manchester City, and Everton losing to Leeds last week. So both of them, I fancy Burnley in this game personally. They'll make it a very, very physical. I can see Yaremina come back in for Everton actually in this game. And I can see it going very, very direct, very physical, relying on set pieces, wide crosses, deep crosses, everything like that. The way Burnley play, but I think they'll really emphasise it even more in this game. Manchester City versus Fulham. Now, like we touched on earlier, can Manchester City continue their momentum or build some momentum? Fulham obviously picking up a good win last week. Probably, timing-wise, is probably quite important because them going to lose to Leicester, and they could have lost heavily to Leicester. Then going to this game here, they could have back-to-back 5-0s potentially in their pocket. But it wasn't the case, so they probably got a bit of confidence. And to be honest with you, it's probably you could argue in some ways probably a bad result going into this game, because the confidence of the players they'll feel they're a bit more oozing, and they fancy a bit more. They fancy we can play a bit more. We'll get on the ball. We'll try and be cute and clever, and all them kind of things. And that might play into Manchester City's hands because they can go and squeeze and press high, or the Fulham players ain't going to be good enough, and that's when they can go and win the ball. Manchester City. Interesting to see how it go. I definitely see City win this game. West Ham Man United. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the sort of the news bulletins, if you like, is, and the reason why I didn't mention it is because I'll mention it here, is there is going to be fans allowed in the Premier League. We touched on this last week. There's going to be up to 2,000 fans allowed at Upton Park, or the London Stadium, should I say. So we've got fans, so this is why I sort of mentioned it here. Obviously they're only allowed to be home fans at this precise moment. So yeah, West Ham for Man United will be the first sort of game where fans are allowed in the Premier League games for the first time in about 9 months' time. Or 9 months, should I say. Getting down to the game itself, this will be a hard game for both teams. I think Man United are playing really well away from home. And they'll be traditionally fancy themselves away from home in any game really. But also West Ham are, you could argue, in better form than Man United. Actually, let's not beat about the bush. They are in better form than Man United. Certainly in the Premier League in a way. So yeah, it'll be a tight game. I think one of the teams will edge it by an odd goal, I reckon. Chelsea versus Leeds, and the second game, which will be allowed fans in again because of the tier system. This is going to be fascinating from an energetic point of view, because I think both teams will have a lot of energy. Both teams will go for it, and I mean lots of spaces for both teams to exploit the opposition's weaknesses and spaces they've left behind. See it being a high scoring game as well, so we'll leave it at that. We'll obviously see what happens next week. Moving on to Sunday then, we've got West Brom versus Crystal Palace. I will say at this stage, we're not sure if the Palace game is going to 100% go ahead. Now, we do think it will. The reason why we think it, or I think it might not go ahead, is because of the COVID situation with Newcastle. Newcastle playing Crystal Palace last week. It all depends on what results they get back from their players. If a lot of players have got COVID or tested positive, then obviously that means they potentially can't fulfil this fixture. So it's all a bit of a knock-on effect. But we think the game will go ahead as it stands. And can West Brom build a momentum? Back-to-back wins in any division is very, very difficult, especially for the teams who aren't elite in their division. And obviously West Brom aren't elite, so back-to-back home wins in particular could be very, very vital for Slaven Bilic and his boys. Sheffield versus Leicester. Now Leicester need to bounce back from back-to-back defeats, one in the league, and one in the Europa League, albeit the Europa League team was very much changed. I think maybe 10 or 11 changes in there. And obviously Sheffield United losing last week, they want to put their wrongs right, which they want to do every week. They want to pick up that first W as well. That's going to be a difficult game for both teams. They've obviously both got their own agendas there. Spurs versus Arsenal, there's a North London derby. Spurs in terrific form in all comps really. Arsenal very, very indifferent. Better in the Europa League, obviously in the Prem, struggling at the moment. I've seen some things online across social media, and particularly on Arsenal Fan TV. This could be the final straw for Mikel Arteta. Now, whether that happens or not, I don't know. My personal view is he needs at least until the end of the season, unless something drastic happens, i.e., he loses another 5 games on the spin, and the performance is horrendous as well. But this is a good game for Spurs. I'm sure they'll have Harry Kane back. Sonny's playing well. Bale, Moura, Bergwijn, Højbjerg, the most underrated player, or one of the most underrated players in the league. So it'll be a good game. Definitely a good game. Maybe even quite interesting from the tactical point of view as well, because Arteta has sort of brought in a good brand of, well, firstly a good brand of football, but also you can see there's tactically the players are taking on information and trying to implement them in the games. You can see that, especially when they played Man United back a couple of months ago. You can see there were certain things they were trying to work on, and you can see that in various games they played. They're trying to implement various tactics. Liverpool versus Wolves is the late game on Sunday. Liverpool hoping to have a couple of players back. Trent's potentially could be back. Naby Keita could be back as well. At the moment, their front line seems to be their strongest form of defence. Really, just going for it, playing whether it's Mane, Salah, and Firmino, the usual front three, or chucking in Jota in there as well, because Jota's actually absolutely on fire at the moment. And from Wolves' point of view, they've actually changed their formation, which I alluded to in the Indie versus Rest of the World. They've changed to a back four in recent weeks, and I think what it is they need another body in advanced areas to try and. I think Nuno's getting a bit more pressure from the board to say, right, after X amount of years we wanted Champions League football. This is your last opportunity, and he's thought about it. Right, this is what's going to give us the best opportunity to get more goals, and then therefore potentially picking up more points, and therefore potentially getting into the Champions League. I think that's one way of looking at it. So they're sort of playing 1-4-4-2 at the moment with, last week it was Jimenez and Traore up front and Podence and Neto on the wings, but this time around it might be Fabio Silva, the young lad who come on. Be interesting to see what they do. In this game in particular, the needs and what's required from Wolves to pick up anything at Anfield, it might be that they go and actually play 3/5 at the back because of the opposition. And then we've got a Monday night game, which is Brighton versus Southampton. I think this is a bit of a derby. I could be wrong. Leave a little comment, guys, because if this is a derby, I haven't done my recon on this, but I think it is a derby. If it is a derby, confirm that with me. And then also, what derby? What's the derby name? Is it, we've got the North London derby, we've got the Manchester derby. Is this the South Coast derby, maybe? I don't know. Leave a little comment, and we're intrigued to know. But from Southampton's point of view, they're obviously picking up lots of points, and obviously had a little blip last weekend, and they could have actually picked up a W there. Danny Ings is he's back training with the first team at the moment. Whether he can be back in the squad this weekend, I'm not sure. The fact it's on a Monday is probably giving him a better chance because he's got a couple of extra days to train. I suspect he'll be on the bench and he'll probably come on and play 15-20 minutes depending on what the game requires. And then Brighton obviously will Mopé be back from a hamstring injury. Lallana picked up another injury. Danny Welbeck is a player that's really seemed like he's finding his form and his feet, and I've been really, really impressed with him, like massively, the last few games. He offers something different to that team, a bit more physicality, but also penetration as well. And he's also got some cuteness and cleverness. You could argue his finishing and his, is to be, not to be desired, and he can definitely work on that. Maybe his goal scoring record will suggest that at all. I don't know. Okay, guys, that actually concludes another episode on the Premier League Appetiser show. I've been Coach Indy. We'll see everyone on the next episode. Like I said before, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. It takes 1 second. Click that notification bell as well. It does help the channel grow massively. Leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know what the Brighton versus Southampton derby is. I'd be intrigued to know what that is. And we'll see everyone next week.